This is a Total production.
Alright everybody, so this is going to be our practice for aromatic naming, looking at benzene and benzene derivatives. So we do have common names that we talked about. There were 6 of them. We'll see those in here. And so we're actually going to look at naming these, whether we use the parent as benzene or the parent as one of those 6 common names that we talked about. Also, we're going to look at using orthometapara versus numbering for these. So some of these have only really 2 names that I would expect you to know, while one of these has 5. So let's look at our first one here. So first off, we have a benzene ring, and it's got an NH2, which we know is an amino group, or an amine group, and then we've got this methyl group. So there's actually 2 common names for this. So if we circle this, right, this would be called aniline, right, which tells us automatically that this carbon is carbon number 1. So if we use this as our parent, we could actually name this, so if that's carbon 1, 2, 3, so this could be either called 3-methyl aniline, right? Or instead of using 3 in the number, using orthometapara, remember it's OMP, so we could also call this M-methyl aniline. Now the other side of this is we have another possible parent. So if you look at, I'm changing up the pen color. So now if I circle this portion with the benzene and the methyl group coming off, this is called toluene. So if we use toluene as the parent instead, we could call this 3-amino toluene. Or as before, M, right, instead of the number 3, because it's, so if that's carbon number 1 now, that's OM, right? So M amino toluene. Okay, so just off those 2 different common names, we have 4 possible names here. Here's the other kicker. What if instead we use benzene as the parent? So if that's the parent, then what do we have? We have an amino group and we have a methyl group. So that means now we're just going to use numbering here. So which group gets position number 1? Well, you use the alphabet, A versus M. So A comes first. So this would automatically be understood as 1 and that 3. So we would have to call this 1-amino 3-methyl benzene. So this actually has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 names that we could use for this. Now this one is kind of the most elaborate of those. The rest of these are usually looking somewhere around 2 options. Okay, so if we look at this guy here, I'm really only going to look at this one if we're talking about naming it via this parent here. All right, so when you have this carboxylic acid group coming off, this is called benzoic acid. Okay, so that's our parent, which means this is carbon number 1, and then numbering to that, it would be 2, 3, 4. So we have a propyl group at position number 4. So we could call this 4-propyl benzoic acid, like so. So we can call it that. Or the other way, we know that instead of numberings, we can use orthometapara. So remember, if this is the parent, benzoic acid, so that means we're saying OMP, right? So it should be para or P propyl, excuse my Y, it got messed up, propyl benzoic acid. Okay, so those would be the 2 most applicable names for this. All right, the next 2 we got here, this has 3 groups. So when we name this, we can't really name this ortho, meta, or para. So we're only going to be able to use numbering. So firstly, I wanted us to look at, if we look, we have a bromo group a methyl group, and an ethyl group. Well, if you have a methyl group on the benzene ring, that is considered a certain common name, right? We've already seen it before, right? Up here, toluene. So, if we use toluene as the parent, we can look at it and go, okay, well, this is automatically carbon number 1. So which way do we go? Do we go to 2 here at the ethyl or 2 here at the bromo? We would have to go here as carbon number 2 because B, bromo, comes before E, ethyl. So it would be 2 bromo, and that would be 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So that'd be 6. 6 ethyl toluene. Okay. Now the other option for naming here, if we didn't use the common name, if we just used benzene, so if we just use benzene as the parent, well, in numbering, it means it's either 1, 2, 3 or it's 1, 2, 3. And so, if you remember, right, it was 2 bromo because B comes before E. Well, guess what? Is it going to be 1 ethyl or is it going to be 1 bromo? It's going to be 1 bromo. So this would be 1, 2, and 3. So you would name this 1 bromo, 3 ethyl, 2 methyl, benzene. A lot of fun to write. It's so much longer. Alright, next up, this guy has 2 different names that we could call it also. Now, based off the common name, this group right here, when you have OCH3, that's an ether group. When you have that specific ether, OCH3, coming off the benzene ring, this is called anisole. Okay, don't get anisole and aniline mixed up. Okay, those are different. Okay, now with the anisole having the OCH3, if that's our parent, then this is automatically understood to be carbon number 1. So this stuff coming off here is at carbon number 2. That's supposed to be a number 2. Alright, so that means you could name this either 2-cyclopentyl, right, because that's a cyclopentane, 2-cyclopentyl anisole, or, right, we can use the ortho-meta-para naming because it's only 2 groups. So this would be the ortho position, right, so O for ortho. So we could call it O-cyclopentyl anisole. Okay. All right. 2 more. All right. So on the next one, this one has 3 groups. So there's not going to be a lot of naming in the realms of ortho-meta-para, right? We can't do that with 3 groups. So all of this is numbers. So the first name we could call it, let's look. We have a possible parent option. We got that. All right. So that would be called phenol. Right, so if I use that as the parent, this is carbon number 1, so that would be carbon number 2, that's 3, and then this would be carbon number 4. So what we're looking at is 4-methyl, right, because M comes before N in nitro, 4-methyl, 2-nitro, phenol. Okay, that's using one parent. Now, if we use a different parent, our handy dandy toluene from before, all right, this is now carbon number 1, 2, that'd be 3, and that would be 4. So when we look at toluene, that would be, so you got, this is called a nitro group, and then this is called hydroxyl. So you would actually write this one first. So it would be 4-hydroxyl, 3-nitro-toluene. The color coding actually helps me too because I almost tried to call it phenol again. All right. And then there is one other name. If we used it for, if we use the parent, NO2, let's do this, CH3. All right, so if we use benzene as the parent instead, So it's either going to be 1, 2 or 1 and 2, right? Because you got to get the smallest set of numbers. So it looks like 1, 2, 4, 5. So it looks like it's going to be 1, 2, and 4. So what we have here is it's going to be 1 hydroxyl, 4 methyl, 2 nitro, benzene. Okay. All right, and then our last one. All right, so here we have what I'm going to do. This group right here has an IUPAC name and a common name. I'm only going to use the IUPAC name. So remember, this is a 2-carbon chain that has a double bond. So technically this is called ethenyl. That's an ethenyl group, right? Remember ethene, but it's not the parent. It's a substituent. That's a group coming off the ring. So so that's what that group is called. But this right here is a very specific common name parent called benzaldehyde. Okay, so since that's the parent, this is carbon number 1, 2, 3. So your options are, you're either going to call this 3-ethenyl benzaldehyde, or you're going to call it, based off of orthometa, what is that, OM? So that'd be an M. So that'd be M for meta, ethenyl benzaldehyde. Okay, and so those would be your 2 name choices for that. All right, well, that does it for naming, so stay weird.